target capital structure of 65% debt and 35% equity. The before tax cost of debt is 6%, the cost of equity is 14%, the tax rate is 3%. Calculate their weighted average cost of capital. Simply take the 6%, multiply it by 1 minus T, that gives me the debt after tax rate. So sure annoys you, your after-tax cost of debt, because I've seen people lose points right there. Multiply that, there's no what here? There's no preferred equity. We only have debt, and we only have common stock. We don't have any preferred stock here. So I take the 65% of my debt, multiply it by the cost, and then I take my 35% remaining times the cost of equity, and that gives me the 7.63%.
That's the weighted average cost?
That's a weighted average cost of capital. You're using the market rates, right? Market rates times the cost of each. You don't have it on me. Remember the sheet that I posted, that one pager for chapter 14? You know what I'm talking about?
On the
Chapter 11?
No, that's chapter 11.
On the table?
No. The one that I went over last week where I said you have to know this one page.
Oh, yeah.
And it had the cost of debt, cost of, yeah, that one. Remember this? Yeah. Were you in class?
Last week?
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Were you awake? You were in class last week, right? I can miss him because his mouth is missing.
Ooh, that was a good one. My soul.
You need to know this. You want me to repost it if I can find it?
Yeah. It's right here. It's up there.
It's up there? Yeah.
Chapter 14 notes. And it's long as
Well, I had all the notes, but that's my summary sheet, because I had some people that didn't show up, and then came to me today and said, well, I can't be in your tutorial. Can you go through all the calculations, please? Damn it, I want to. So I made them find that page and calculate it all in front of me. Okay, here's a concept question that we talked about. 37. Using a firm's weighted average cost of capital as a required rate of return in evaluating a new project is acceptable when the risk of the project being evaluated is the same as the overall risk of the firm. So if I'm doing,
Thank you.
so that's the type, that's the kind of stuff you need to know in terms of concept, that and risk. Is very similar to the probability question that I showed you before. So in this case, you have A and B, you put 20% of your money in A, you have 80% in B, the returns are different. So in this case, you have to figure out the expected return of A and B using the weights. Then you come back and you use the probabilities. So I took my 20% times the 22% and the 80% times the 18%. The expected return in an expansion for that is 18.8%. Then I took the 20% times the 8% and the 80% times 10%, which is what you would make in a recession. That gives you an expected return of 9.6%. Then I take those two and bring them down and then use them with my probabilities. So again, step one, I don't want anybody to get it wrong. Use the weights. Step two, probabilities. probabilities until you've completed step one. So now that I have the expected returns for both those scenarios, then I can multiply them by the probabilities of either an expansion or a recession will take place. So I take my 18.8%, multiply that by the 40%. Then I take the 9.6% that you make in a recession, you have a 60% chance that you're gonna have a recession. Multiply those, add them together, I get 13.28%, or expected return is 13.3%. That's gonna be the biggest weighted question on the exam. To calculate a firm's weighted average cost of capital for a firm that has no preferred stock. Yeah, the last example, weighted average cost of capital. The weights applied to the cost of each component, based on the market values of debt and equity only, right? You don't use the book values, so use the market values.
Okay.
Make sense? It is, if you don't care about curve ratio, you don't care about book value, you don't care about that. You just need to know what makes up the weighted average cost of capital in that situation, which is true for most concept questions. Here's my one page report, the break-even, which is that handout for chapter 11 on one page. You'll have to do an account break-even. I'm not gonna have you have to do a degree of operating leverage. Okay? As I said, I wasn't gonna test you, I'm not gonna count it on the degree of operating leverage too. County break-even, that again is where net income equals 0. Fixed cost plus depreciation divided by P minus B. Cash flow break-even, that's where operating cash flow equals 0. You have to know what you're calculating. That's the number of units where operating cash flow equals 0. There you take out depreciation, it's just fixed cost over P minus B. The financial break-even, that's where net present value equals 0. If you get one like this on the final, it takes a lot of time to calculate it. I will come back to it. That's fixed cost over over price or minus B. Fixed cost is added to OCF, operating cash flow, asterisk. That's where NPV equals 0. In order to calculate that, I'm gonna go back to the handout. Remember how we went over number 5? And I did everything except financial break-even, C and D? I'm gonna do that. So, in this situation, a product line has the following estimated data: selling price of $64 a share, variable cost of $42 a unit, fixed cost of $15, required rate of return of 15%, initial investment of $28,000, and a depreciable life of 4 years. They're asking you, what's the accounting break-even, what's the cash flow break-even, what's the financial break-even, and what's the degree of operating leverage. I did the first two last week. I'm gonna add the financial and the degree of operating leverage. So we simply take the 28,000, divide by 4 years, depreciation is 7,000. So I take the fixed cost of 15,000 plus the depreciation, divide that by the $64, the price, minus the variable cost per unit. At 1,000 units, that's my accounting break-even, that's where my net income equals 0. Cash flow break-even, we don't care about what with cash flow? Depreciation, so I'm just using the fixed cost. So the 15,000 divided by the price minus the variable cost per unit, that's 681.81 units. That's where my operating cash flow is equal to 0. If you wanted to calculate your financial break-even, first you have to figure out OCF. Asterisk, that's where operating cash flow equals 0. How do you do that? you have to figure out the monthly present value of an annuity factor, which we did way at the beginning of the course. You will have this formula. Isn't this formula familiar? It's this one, remember the handout? Again, it's not a big deal on the final, and you really don't care about the 3 points or whatever it's worth. I wouldn't spend time on it. Again, I'm not asking you this on the test. So you have 15% is the required rate of return. You're gonna hold it for 4 years. You put it in your equation to figure out the present value annuity factor. You come up with 2.8549. Use this calculation. So if I do the 1.1, down arrow key, 4. That gives me 1.749. Remember how to do that with this over here? Remember that? You want me to write it out? You guys remember it? You remember it? Okay. Again, take the 1.15, down arrow key, hit the X, hit the 4. That's the factor. Then you divide that into your 1, put it in your formula. The present value of annuity factor is 2.8549. Now what do you do with that? You take it and divide it into your initial investment of $28,000. See, this is why I don't care about it. 2.8549. So where your operating cash flow is equal to 0 is 98,000. Oh wait. Then you add that. There's a formula. Take you down here. So after I've used that annuity factor to come up with my operating cash flow asterisk, or net present value equals 0, I add those two together.
Slide it up, please.
Slide it up.
Thank you.
15,000 plus the 9808. Divide that by 22. So, if you really care about it, that's the financial break even, which is where NPV equals 0. Number of units where NPV equals 0 for this example is 1,127.63 units.
You said that wouldn't be on our test?
That's not gonna be on my test. It could be, it probably will be on the final. I'm probably gonna